Hello everyone. Let's continue with our chapter number 4, Children of India. We are reading on page number 40. And in the last video, we read about the narrator's experience of life. He told us about what he has observed, and then he draws out a comparison about what kind of opportunities the children have who belong to poor households with that of the children who belong to the rich households, children who belong to government schools, children who belong to private schools. So he tried to draw a comparison that children who belong to private schools, they have better facilities, they have the exposure, the fortunate ones have the exposure towards more opportunities, while the children who belong to government schools, they have that talent, but they don't have the opportunity to display it. They don't get the chance to show their talent to the men who have the power, to the men who have the authority to select them into teams. Okay? But then he says that they should continue playing for the love of the game. And then he talks about the winter season coming and the days becoming shorter. And he says that children should walk fast now because they come from miles away and they have to walk fast so that they reach home before it gets dark. But Ranbir and his friends, they observe that they are not even halfway their home and it is already dark. What is the time, uncle? He says, as he trudges up the steep road past Ivy Cottage. And who is he here? Ranbir. He says, what is the time, uncle? Because he could see that it has become dark. So he asks, as he trudges up the steep road past Ivy Road, that means he was walking slowly, right? When you're walking the steep road, that means a slopey road, then you walk slowly. So when they passed the Ivy Cottage Road, he asked somebody, what is the time, uncle? One gets used to being called uncle by almost every boy or girl one meets. And then he makes a very humorous statement here. He says that you get habitual of being called uncle if you're walking on a road and you see small little children passing you. So you get habitual of getting called uncle. I wonder how the custom began. And then he says, I sometimes start thinking who must have started this tradition of calling anybody uncle. Why would anybody call uncle and who must have started this? He starts wondering. He starts thinking about it. Maybe it has its origins in the folk tale about the tiger who refrained from pouncing on you if you called him uncle. And perhaps means maybe. So he says maybe this started from the folk tale. That means the folk story about the tiger who did not attack on you if you called him uncle. Can this happen in real? No. This is why this is a folk tale. This is a folk story which we do not know whether it's true or not. So he says that I think maybe it started from that, after that story of tiger who did not attack on anybody if they called him uncle. So if you call a tiger uncle, he will not attack you, according to the story, according to this folk tale. Tigers don't eat their relatives, or do they? Then he says that I think tigers will not eat their relatives, I think, yeah. Or do they eat their relatives also? The ploy may not work if the tiger happens to be a tigress. And then ploy, that means this idea. And then he says, oh no, but the idea will not work if the tiger is a tigress. Because if you call her uncle, it will not work. You should call her auntie, right? Or as she descends on you. Descends means comes near to attack you, comes near in a fearful way, which makes you fearful. Would you call her auntie as she descends on you? Or your teacher? And then he says you're also afraid of your teacher. This is just a folk tale. He's trying to tell us, he's just trying to think that from where did this word uncle must have originated? Why must people have started calling anybody uncle? Okay, so a humorous story. Then he says, it's dark at 6 and by then Ranbir likes to be out of the deodar forest and on the open road to the village. And then he says that it was already 6 o'clock and it was dark by then. And Ranbir likes to get out of the timber forest by that time, because in the forest it gets dark. Yes, and that is why he says that he prefers to be on the open road on the village, because there it is lighted up, there are street lights. The moon and the stars and the village lights are sufficient, that means they're enough, but not in the forest where it is dark even during the day. So this forest was very dense. It was dark there even during the day. The sunlight was not sufficient. And the silent flitting of bats and flying foxes and the eerie hoot of an owl can be a little disconcerting for the hardiest of children. And then he's helping us to think what sounds are there. Just try to imagine. And the silent flitting of bats. What's flitting? Let's see. Swift and light movement. Flying foxes, large fruit bats, eerie, strange and frightening, disconcerting, feeling unsettled and anxious when you're curious, when you're in stress. Hardiest, the strongest and bravest. So he says the silent movement of bats, there are bats in the forest. So he says the silent movement of bats and the flying foxes. Flying foxes is a kind of bat who likes to eat fruits. And the eerie hoot of an owl. And the strange and frightening and the scary sound of the owl can be, can be a little disconcerting. That means it can make the brave child also fearful. The bravest child. The sounds which are coming in the forest, that is the sound of bats, the eerie hoot of an owl, that means the scary hooting of the owl, it can make even the bravest child fearful. It can scare the bravest child also. Once Ranbir and the other boys were chased by a bear, and then he is telling us about the story. He says, once what happened, Ranbir and the other boys were chased by a bear. When he told me about it, I said, well, now we know you can run faster than a bear. And then he makes a funny comment and he says that, okay, now because you are safe, so now we know you can run faster than a bear. Yes, but you have to run downhill when chased by a bear. Who is saying this line? This is said by Ranbir. Please underline and write. Yes, but you have to run downhill when chased by a bear. You cannot run uphill. That means down the hill, towards the downward side of the hill. He spoke as one having long experience of escaping from bears. And he said this line because he has a lot of experience of escaping from bears. That means saving himself from bears. They run much faster uphill. And then he says, please don't run uphill because they are able to run faster if you're going upwards towards the hill. So if you're going downwards, you will be able to save yourself. This was the tip given by the expert Ranbir. I'll remember that, I said. The narrator says, yeah, sure, I will remember that. Thanks for the advice. And I don't suppose calling a bear uncle would help. And then he again makes this humorous comment and says that thank you very much for the advice, because I don't think calling bear uncle would help. I don't think bear is going to leave me. The bear is not going to pounce on me if I call him uncle. I don't think so. It will not help. Okay. Usually Ranbir has the company of other boys and they sing most of the way. For loud singing by small boys will silence owls and frighten away the demons. And then he says that usually Ranbir has the company of other boys. That means usually Ranbir does go walking back to home with his friends. Okay, he has this group of friends, and what are they doing? In most of their way, when they are crossing the forest and the road, they are singing most of the time, because they are singing loudly, so that sound will save them from those sounds, those scary sounds which come in the forest. So for loud singing by small boys will silence owls and frighten away the forest demons. He says, the narrator says, they're singing because they think that if they're singing, they feel safe when they're singing because it keeps the owls silent. They don't make those scary sounds. And if there is any monster, that will also not attack on them. Okay, so he says, and frighten away. That means scare away the forest demons. Demons here is the forest animals, the any kind of monster. One of them plays a flute, and flute music in the mountains is always enchanting. He says that one of them plays a flute. As you can see in the picture, which is given here, as you can see, this boy is playing flute. So one boy plays a flute, and flute music in the mountains is always very delightful. It always feels really enchanting. Not only in the hills but all over India. Now he's talking about other parts of the country. He says that not only in the hilly areas but all over the India, children are continuously making their way to and from school. That means they're going to school, they're coming back to school. And in what conditions? In conditions that range from dust storms in the Rajasthan desert to blizzards in Ladakh and Kashmir. He says that these conditions, they are not going to school or coming from school in normal conditions. They have adverse conditions to face. And what kind of conditions? The dust storms in the Rajasthan to blizzards in Ladakh. The snowstorms. The snowstorms. Okay. In larger towns and cities, there are school buses, but in remote rural areas, getting to school can pose a problem. He says in the larger towns and cities, there are buses plying for the children. Like you all used to come to school by school bus, right? So in larger towns and cities, there are buses plying for these children. But in remote areas, that means the villages, rural areas, the villages, remote areas, that means the far off village areas, for them there are no buses, which creates a problem for these children. Pose a problem, that means cause a problem. Okay, so this creates a problem. This causes a problem for these children because they do not live in larger, bigger towns and cities, and there are no buses for them. There is no transportation for them to come to school. So they have to face these situations. Look at the children here. What are they doing here? They are holding each other's hand so that they can cross this river easily. Their satchels, their bags on their head. Just think about this condition. All their clothes will get wet. And after this, they are going to school. They're not going towards home. They're going to school like this. They have to cross this river every day. Just think about the situation. It's not easy for everyone. Everybody does not get equal opportunities. So this is what he's talking about. Most children are more than equal to any obstacles that may arise. Like those youngsters in Ganjam district of Orissa. He says, so where is the picture from? This is from Orissa, the Ganjam district of Orissa. This picture is from there. He says most children are more than equal to any obstacles that may arise. That means most of the children are so brave that any obstacle cannot stop them. In the absence of a bridge, they swim or wade across the Dhanai river every day in order to reach their school. So, because there is no bridge, so what do? They swim or walk through the water so that they can reach school. I have a picture of them in my scrapbook. Holding books or satchels aloft in one hand, they do the breaststroke or dog paddle with the other, or form a chain and help each other cross. Just look at the way they are crossing the river to reach school. The writer has shown us a picture from his scrapbook where you can see children holding their bags, satchels, that means bags, aloft, that means high in the air. So above their head, they are holding their bags and they are crossing the river. Sometimes they form a chain. They hold each other's hand. They walk. They swim just to reach school. Just try to imagine how much willpower these children have. Every day they have to face these situations in everyday life, and this is how they reach school. Will you be able to do so? Just tell me, just think about it. Wherever you go in India, you will find children helping out with the family's source of livelihood, whether it be drying fish on the Malabar coast, or gathering saffron buds in Kashmir, or grazing camels or cattle in a village in Rajasthan or Gujarat. He says wherever you go in India, you will always find children who are helping out their families to earn money, because they have to help their families. They are not belonging to a rich household, so to help their family to earn some good money, they have to help. And it can be in anything, whether to dry fish on the coast, or gathering the saffron buds in Kashmir, or grazing the camels or the cattle, the livestock in the villages of Gujarat or Rajasthan. Only the more fortunate can afford to send their children to English medium private or public schools, and those children really are fortunate, for some of these institutions are excellent schools, as good and often better than their counterparts in Britain or the USA. He says only the lucky ones are able to afford to send their children to the private schools, the public schools. Only the lucky parents who are rich enough, who have enough money so that they can send their children to those private schools. Because in government schools, you don't have to pay much fees. And those children really are fortunate. Yes, because they are really lucky, because the facilities are somewhat better in private schools. And those children really are fortunate, because these institutions are excellent. These institutions are really good, and sometimes they are better than their counterparts. Counterparts, as you can see the meaning, people or things identical or closely resembling another. That means the same school, the branch of that school which is in Britain or which is in USA, these schools which are situated in India, they are sometimes very much better than those schools, the same branch of that school, if it is in USA or Britain. Also, now the situation has improved. The story was written earlier, now the situation has improved. The government schools have also improved. Whether it's in Ajmer or Bangalore, New Delhi or Chandigarh, Kanpur or Calcutta, the best schools set very high standards. That means the standards which are set by these schools are really high, because they are in those metropolitan cities. These are the schools in big cities. So the quality of education that they're providing is also really high. So the quality of education these children are getting, and the result is according to that. So these children have really good education. They sometimes have an upper hand as compared to the children who are from the local schools, local area schools. The great majority of our children will attend schools run by the state or municipality. There are only few children who are lucky enough to go to the private schools. Most of the children today also, they are going to attend the schools which are run by the government. These vary from good to bad to the ugly. And these schools, we will not say that all these schools who are run by government are bad. They're also good. There are good schools also which are run by the government. But they range from bad to ugly, depending on how they are run and where they are situated. So, two things on which these schools, the quality of education provided by these schools depend, is on two things: how they are run, that means how they are maintained, what kind of principal, what kind of teachers are there, what kind of structure is there in the school, education structure, how are they providing education to children, how are they taking the classes. First thing. Second, where they are, the place at which it is situated, the city, whether it's situated in the city or whether it's situated in rural areas, right? So on these two things it depends, the quality of education that is being provided in that school. This is about both the private and the government. A classroom without windows or roof, or with a roof that lets in the monsoon rain, is not uncommon. Then he talks about another problem which these schools face. There are classrooms without windows. It doesn't have any window. And the roof sometimes leaks the monsoon rain. The leaks and the roof is not proper. It has leakage. It's not uncommon. That means it is a very common thing to see classrooms without any window glasses. There are no windows. And the roof has leakage of the monsoon rain. Even so, children from different communities learn to live and grow together. Hardship makes brothers of us all. Very important phrase. Please underline this. So, hardships makes brothers of us all. That means when you're together working, each day you're working hard and helping each other. So, the credit of the result is given to everybody. So, it's like a family working with each other, right? When a family works, everybody gets the credit. Yes. So when these children are living together and working and growing together, it feels as if they are a family. The census tells us that 2 in every 5 of the population is in the age group of 5 to 15. Census is an official count of the population. When the government counts the number of people in the country, that is a census. It is a survey. So it tells us that 2 in every 5 of the population. That means if I'm taking 5 children from the population, so 2 children out of these are of the age of 5 to 15. They belong to the age group of 5 to 15, which is almost half our population is on the way to school. He says that almost half of the population which is in India is going to school. And still imagine the kind of structures that are there in rural areas and sometimes in cities also, the kind of structures these schools have. And here I stand at my window, and here he rests, and here he says that here I'm standing at my window watching some of them pass by, boys and girls. In the end, he's saying that here he's standing at his window watching some of the boys and girls pass by. Some are really young, some are big, some scruffy, that means some are not very tidy, they are wearing shabby clothes, dirty clothes. Some look very smart, some are very naughty, mischievous means naughty, some are serious, but all going somewhere, hopefully towards a better future. He says, I still see every day children going to school. Some are wearing good clothes, tidy clothes, that means clean uniform. Some are looking shabby, the shoes must be torn, or their dress must not be ironed properly. Some look very naughty, some are very serious. But each one of them has a hope in their heart. They're hopefully walking towards a better future. They're hopefully working on them in the present so that they can improve their future. They're walking towards a bright future. Okay? So I hope you must have understood the chapter. And here, let us summarize what we have read. So the poet here, the writer here, Ruskin Bond, is talking about children of India, how children who belong to various households have to face different situations. Children who are living in different parts of the country, whether it's in desert or the hilly areas or the cold areas, there are children who have to face a lot of obstacles. They have to face a lot of adversities just to reach school. After that, they study. They work hard each and every day and also achieve their dreams. So he's talking about the kind of opportunities, the kind of situations these children have. Only few children are fortunate to get all the facilities. Not all are fortunate enough. So if you're fortunate enough to get good education, make full use of it. This is what the poet wants to say. That if you're getting that opportunity to get good education, if you're going to school without any obstacle, make sure that you're using that opportunity to the fullest. Because when you're working in the present, if you're working hard on yourself today, then only you will get the result tomorrow in the future. Okay, children? I hope this is clear to you, right? I hope you will work hard on yourself now. You will work hard each and every day. It's not important to study for 5 hours, 6 hours every day. After your classes are over, Okay, then take rest and then revise what you have done in the whole day. It will just take you 1 hour, hardly 1 hour, to revise everything, to go through everything, read it carefully. Read everything very carefully, and you will be able to understand each and everything that you have done on that present day. And then, if you have any doubt, you can definitely ask your teachers next day. So, work hard each and every day. And working hard does not mean that you keep on writing 10, 12 pages. No. Working hard means when you're doing something, the mind should be focused on that thing only. You should not be thinking about any other game or cartoon or any other thing. With this, we finish off with this chapter. Lovely chapter written by Ruskin Bond.